Hey, what is up, guys? It's Spaghetti Jack. Also, he used to be known as Jackaboy. And I'm going to be taking you through my hydrogen bomb build today on my Amon. So, the customization doesn't really matter. You can just make it look like whatever you want. However, we'll go through the skill tree first because this is where most of our important gear is coming from. You can slap anything you want into your gun slots. Literally, like I've got meteors, pearls, purples, doesn't really matter. As long as it can kill, it will kill. So the first skill we're going to be taking a look at is Incepitus. Incepitus is a 15% stacking skill for 3 stacks, so that comes out around about 45% for shield recharge rate. That is brilliant because what we're going to be using is our What's for Dinner. So keeping this at uptime as much as possible for the Vagabond bonus anyway, but just for the special effect of What's for Dinner anyway is really, really important. So because it's only a 3 skill, we take 2 in What Burns Within. You can take Discombobulate, but it doesn't really matter, either of these. Moving down the tree, we have Gut Punch. Gut Punch is a normal status effect. You look at status effect charm, status effect damage. So it's a 20% on melee, 10% on ordnance to just apply weakness to an enemy. Weakness enemies take 40% more damage and they deal 20% more damage to you. So it's a little bit of a trade-off, but most of the time the 20% damage doesn't really matter because they're either going to Hellscape you or they're not. I'll explain Hellscape later, but it's just a term we use in the Borderlands community for when you drop below shields and you're one tap essentially. We then take Titanium Knuckles. Titanium Knuckles is quite nice because it's one of the only available sources of soup we have on Amon. Amon doesn't have a lot of soup. Now, soup is the term we use for additive bonuses in the middle of the damage formula. So the damage formula should be popped up on screen right now. Anything that's highlighted in blue is soup. So skill damage and melee damage is both just really, really good soup for our action skill, Force of Nature. While Onslaughter is active, gun damage dealt to enemies will prime them for a duration and will detonate when they are damaged by a forge skill dealing incendiary damage. So the reason Force of Nature light is because our gunshots are actually dealing action skill damage. Because every time we hit an enemy with Force of Nature, it will apply a prime stack, which will dot them. That dot is action skill damage. However, it will take the value of gun damage you dealt and apply that as action skill damage. So it's 100% action skill damage, basically, on gunshots, as you can see at the very bottom there. We then take the best defense. This is for overshield proccing. Again, What's for Dinner, we want to keep our overshield up for the special effect of What's for Dinner, giving us bonus shock damage. You might be wondering, well, we're not punching, we're shooting. We'll take a look at this tree in a little bit, but the important bits here are the Forge Drones. Forge Drones do a lot of special things in our skill tree. One of them is proccing the best defense. So, cool. We then take Bullock Storm. Whenever we apply a status effect, we gain increased gun damage. Now, this just stacks with Force of Nature. Every shot we deal will be dealing gun damage and action skill damage because our gun shots are converting into action skill when they deal prime. So, Auto Force a dot through Force of Nature. So this will start at 0, for example. You will shoot, or you activate your action skill, shoot the enemy. That will apply a dot and gun damage. So that dot will increase our gun damage, increasing our Force of Nature. Amon has very, very special damage formula where most of his skills actually aren't soup on skill trees. They're either bonus elements or they're things that will just sequentially increase his damage through doing something else. We also take Forged in Steel because Forged in Steel will proc off of Stormcutter. Stormcutter does have the highest cooldown out of all of the Forged skills in tree. However, we don't really care because we've got Fist of Stones and a 1% bonus increase. Yeah, it might not seem like a lot, but when our Forged Drones are hitting an enemy, 3 times a second, that's a lot. That's 3%, and there's no internal cooldown. So it doesn't matter if you deal 50 melee attacks in 1 second. They will all stack the cooldown. So this is basically just immunity at all times for for Amon, as long as he can activate his action skill. Not his action skill, his force skill. Apologies. Catastrophe. Now, Catastrophe is a very funny skill. The shock effect on it isn't actually working as intended currently, but we don't care. What normally happens is when you apply a status effect, because in Borderlands 4 we have stacking status effects, when you apply one, it will apply a stack of Catastrophe. For fire specifically, shock, you have to wait for the status effect to end before you can apply a new one. That is on a single target. On multiple targets, it doesn't really matter. You know, if you've got Jacob's crit or you've got guns which will ricochet through special effect, the shock effect, you know, it doesn't really matter. Whenever you apply shock, you get crit chance. This is 15% at full stacks. And then whenever you apply burning, you get crit damage, which is 30% at max stacks. Take in count that we have basically always on shock bonus element and basically always on fire bonus element. This is a very, very good skill. Our crit chance, I'll take you through specializations in a little bit, but our crit chance for action skill and guns is almost 100%. Every shot will be a crit, especially if you aim for the heads. Like, aiming for the heads is true critting, and it's not what we call fake crits. So fake crits only actually get 10% bonus to increased damage, whereas true crits get 15% increased. So whatever the damage number is on your gun, think if you get a crit, it will be that damage number, 15% more, you know, 15 to 10%, depending on if you're fake or true critting. Now we take Dragon's Breath. Dragon's Breath is a very, very good skill because it's actually AMP. Now, AMP in this game, I won't go into it, but it's the best damage dealer in the game because it's pre-add bonuses. So before you add, you know, your skill damage, your gun damage, it will apply before that, so it multiplies. So just on a 20% AMP, you are actually getting around about 150% bonus damage because it multiplies all of your damage beforehand. You can have AMP here on your shield instead of Vagabond. I'm not a huge fan of AMP. I much prefer using skill tree based AMPs than shield AMPs. And again, you can put AMP on your rep kit. If you do have AMP in both of these places, in my personal opinion, just drop the point of Dragon's Breath and put it in Fist of Stone for a better percentage on core skill cooldown. And then we need Crackling Aegis. This is just here for the status effect damage. We don't really care for the ordnance damage. It's okay. I mean, we could drop the points and put them in more Fist of Stone, or we could look at Wield the Storm. Wield the Storm has some funny interactions. It's specifically why we're not taking it in this skill setup. We normally would, but for what we're doing, it's not the best. Now, we have the crux of the build. We have Berserk, and there is only red. Now, Berserk, with 10 out of 5 points, so you can get this through a Shatter White. It's a 60% bonus cryo damage. Now, this is just bonus, so it's a new damage instance, so it will get all of your super again, it will get all of your amp again, it will take whatever damage you deal and it will just apply a bonus damage to it. And because it's a percent, it does actually care what you put in other places. If it was just a flat damage bonus, we wouldn't really care, you know, but because it isn't, because it's a percent, we want to boost the internal proc before we boost Berserk. And then we have There Is Only Red. Now this is a 600% bonus cryo element. Now 600%, you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot. It's not, because it's a kill skill. To get up to this point, to get up to 600% without My Touch's death is incredibly difficult. 9 times out of 10 on a boss, you won't actually see max There Is Only Red stacks. You'll get maybe 4 or 5 from My Touch's death, but you will not get max. And then we take Rim Break. Rim Break is just a very nice defensive skill. If your shield breaks, you know, you get 30% of it back and you deal with detonation. Detonations will proc Force of Nature. So if you Force of Nature an enemy and then they Rim Break you and you're close enough, it will proc a Force of Nature, which will then proc a Raging Inferno. So it's a very, very nice loop. but it is a defensive skill, so it doesn't actually do anything for our damage specifically. If you want more damage from these 2 points, just put them in Bloodlust. Bloodlust is reload speed and lifesteal, so it's not actually more damage, apart from the fact if you can reload faster, you can get more damage out quicker, but then you're limited by fire rate, so take it here or there. And then we have My Touch is Death. Whenever Amon deals melee damage, you get a chance to activate kill skills. Now this will activate any kill skill. That includes... where is it? No, I don't actually have any other kill skills. My old spec, I used to take Gathering Storm and Vital Organs, but these are just better. These are just better, so we take those now. My Touch is Death is just here to proc There Is Only Red. Most skills, or most Amon builds that take My Touch is Death will take a Slippy. We're choosing not to do that because we want to get as much out of Dragon's Breath as possible. So instead, we can finally flick over to Green Tree. Now, Green Tree, you can actually use the action skill here. It's quite a nice action skill. It won't do nearly as much damage as this setup, but it's there. So the first things we take is Executioner. This is a 40% because of our Forge Drones. We're dealing melee damage at all times. 40% of our damage, critical hit damage. Now this is, again, soup, but it's very, very good soup. Rather than on a fake crit only having 10%, you now double your damage. You double any damage you do as long as it's a crit. This is brilliant for Amon. As I've said, Amon doesn't have a lot of soup, so being able to get this much soup on Amon is very, very nice. Get the lead out. Get the lead out is just increased reload speed. If we have higher reload speed, as I've said, you can get your guns out quicker, you can get your bullets out quicker. Obviously, you're still limited by fire rate, but that doesn't really matter. As long as you have fire rate high enough, your reload speed will help that. So we take 4 here because we need to put a point in Pyre. And then we go below it, we have Bolt Action. Whenever we reload, we get bonus shock damage. So these two skills work really well together because you decrease the time you're spending reloading, and after reloading, you get more shock damage. This is a new damage instance as well. It's not just, oh, you get shock on your guns. No, you get a new shock instance, which again, such as Berserk or the bonus element from Force of Nature, it will take all your damage and then it will apply it to itself, and then it will get its own representative skill and damage bonuses. So if we wanted Herald's Call instead of these, if you were using a Slippy, that would be very nice because your shock damage would get all of your formula and then it would apply this. And then we have Tempered Pyre. So all of the tempered skills, these are all just Forge Drones. I will demonstrate. You activate your action skill or your Forge, and these will just spawn around you, and they'll go and target enemies for you. They're very, very nice. They can proc certain melee skills, not a lot of them, but they can. So taking Tempered Pyre, Tempered Lightning, and Tempered Twins, or Twin Tempers, again, is just here for My Touch is Death. But if you want, you know, to dump a couple more points in them to hopefully get damage out of them, you won't get damage out of them. You can drop these. You can drop one of these. I would personally get the lead out and go for Tempered Pyre. And then obviously the 1 point that you do have here normally, you would just put into Bolt Action for 5 out of 5. And then we have Raging Inferno. This is our bossing, in air quotes. You can use it quite efficiently for mobbing. It doesn't really matter. But our bossing option. So at a 15% crit chance, your action skills may now crit. This is very nice because Force of Nature won't naturally crit on our gunshots. So our gunshots will crit, but Force of Nature itself won't. So being able to give it critical hit chance means that all of these other crit damages, you know, you've got this one, you've got Catastrophe, they will now increase Force of Nature if it crits. However, the second part of the line is where we like to see. Additionally, critical hits from direct action skill applies burn. You can force this out through Stormcutter. So if you apply an enemy with Force of Nature and your gun, and then you Stormcutter them, they will just die. Just quite simply die. That is 100%, it's 160% basically of your gunshot applied as burn every second. 160%. That is incredible. Considering that we're also getting 600% cryo damage, it staggers. So you apply your damage, it applies Force of Nature, you Stormcutter, and then all of that damage gets what we call snapshotted and applied as dot. You know, Shield Amp, Repkit Amp, and Dragon's Breath do what we call Rain Dance. So you do a bunch of stuff. You get My Touch is Death going, getting there is only red and Berserk, and then you can Stormcutter, Force of Nature an enemy, and you'll see currently that will just tick. That will tick any boss into the floor, and they do not care. Raging Inferno does not care. You can use a Furnace instead of a Shatterite, so we lose the 60% of Berserk, so we get 630%, which is okay. It's okay, I'm not going to say it's bad, but then you get 30% crit chance and 120% burn damage. Now, the reason we choose not to go for a Furnace is because of our firmwares. Critical hit chance, skill critical hit chance specifically, so that applies to all of our Force of Nature, our Forge Drones, anything basically from Tree, is increased by 10%. So that is just giving us 40% chance to crit instead of 30. Or we then take Gadgets Ahoy for Ordnance cooldown and Airstrike for Splash Radius. Splash Radius will apply to our detonations caused by Onslaughter. It will also apply to any Torg weapons or splash weapons you've got. It will also apply to a very funny thing called Bismuth Tipped. Now, the Bismuth Tipped dagger is soup. It is just soup. If I show you down here, you can have fire, cryo, or shock. Doesn't really matter. You're dealing all three of them. I prefer shock itself, because when you are dealing shock damage from What's for Dinner, it is your lowest damage source. So being able to just push it up slightly more to get more out of your Raging Inferno, it's very nice. It's actually about 7-second cooldown because of our Gadgets Ahoy. 15% drops it, by about 2 seconds. And then the 7 charges is what we're really looking for. With the cooldown on it and, other skills that might allow you to detonate more effectively or get your cooldown back quicker, 7 charges you're never going to run out. In between every shot you do of your gun, so if I do this, swap it to shotgun mode, every shot will be amped through this skill. Obviously getting kills will increase your damage, but if we go 3k, drop that on it, it's dotting, so it won't actually show us how much our damage is, but if we do it here again, so about 35k, hit again, 83. So that's just from throwing one of these, you're increasing your damage more than double, quite simply. That's not even having anything else active, that's no action skill, that's no What's for Dinner, that's just Bismuth Tipped working with Dragon's Breath. Moving over to our specializations, these are all maxed out. I have maxed all of these out, so the damage numbers on these are a little bit scuffed. The multiplicative action skill damage, whatever. I am a gun. Action skill damage now benefits from gun damage. So all of the gun damage bonuses you've got on here, 52%, that goes into your skill damage. So it's very, very nice for specifically Force of Nature. If Force of Nature wasn't a thing, we probably wouldn't take this skill. So we then have Honed Mind. Action skill damage gains a chance to critically hit. This, again, is applying with our other ones. So we now have around about 45% crit chance on our action skills. And this increases our crit damage by 50%. So that burn that we deal from Raging Inferno, just 0.5% more of it. 0.5%? 0.5 times more damage on that. Riddle you this. Every gun-oriented build will take Riddle you this. 1% gun damage for every time you deal gun damage from max stacks of 50. This is just 50% gun damage for free that will then apply to a bunch of different things. You know, it will go into Force of Nature directly by boosting your guns. It will go into Tritanium Knuckles through I Am Gun. Storm Cutter, although it isn't actually an action skill, it does get skill damage, so it will increase that. Your Raging Inferno procs, that it's a skill, so it gets skill damage, so it gets the gun conversion, which is quite nice. These will get, your Forge Drones will get the Riddle You This conversion, so it's just a very, very nice skill to have. And then finally, you can choose between Best Defense or Contamination. I prefer Contamination because we're always essentially critting with guns. Whenever we do crit, it increases our status effect chance, application chance. The reason we like this is because if Force of Nature, without even forcing Stormcutter, naturally crits through applying the dot, and then the dot itself crits, Raging Inferno will trigger automatically, dealing, 1-2 mil damage ticks a second. So, yeah. Obviously, as I've said, your Shatterite... Actually, I forgot about that. I forgot about my Blue Tree skill. Northern Winds. This is just the other skill on the Shatterite. This is the skill that you want to look for. So Amon's gun critical hits have a chance to apply additional slow. This is another bonus element. So slow is just a status effect. If they have slow, it's essentially dealing cryo damage to them, but it's not actually cryo damage, so cryo damage boosts don't matter. But it works as if it was cryo damage. That's it, really. You have a lot more shield options. You can go for fireworks if you want to do mobbing. This is just very funny. An Elpis Star with Amp. Your Forge Drones will now cool down Meteor Storms. Now, these Meteor Storms are actually gun damage, so they can proc things such as Force of Nature, Riddle You This. It's a very nice utility skill. However, we do just prefer the shock damage from this because it's helping our business tips, it's helping our reload speed, Now, the gun options, you're not actually limited. I would suggest just having a mantra on you at all times. It doesn't have to be TD or parted, it could be Ripper, it could be Jacobs, doesn't matter. But a shock fire mantra, because it deals melee damage, it will proc my touch's death. So if your cooldowns are down and you can't, get a Forge Drone up, for example, just shoot this twice. Shoot this twice and it will basically always proc my touch's death. Which will then give you your 660% cryo damage. You've got trucks, As I said, it doesn't really matter what you use. Anything you will use will deal enough damage to kill. But you do always want to be looking for, especially on Amon, shotgun underbarrel swap. Always want to be looking for shotgun swap. Yes, it does mean you will deal 2 ammo per shot, but the fact we just get an extra 3 pellets per shot. 3 pellets per shot is insane for Amon, because all of his damage bonuses will be multiplied throughout each of those pellets. So if we, again, I dotted you quite successfully. We're just going to punch this man once to get the what for dinner effect up. Shoot. So around about 54k. So that's already applied burn, Stormcutter activated, it applied burn. But if we... 4.3 mil tick just from shooting twice and punching. So in that last clip, I actually forgot to talk through our enhancements. Now, most of the enhancements that you're going to want are going to have primary and secondary of gun damage and splash radius. Again, as I've said previously, splash radius helps increase our detonation damage. It also helps increase bismuth tipped. For some reason, bismuth tip has a splash radius, so if it can proc slightly onto enemies, then who cares? If you're using predominantly Torg or Jacob weapons, I suggest using Headringer Airburst as your primary augments, or Sequencer Bounce Pass. Sequencer Bounce Pass is the better option out of the two. However, Torg, Headringer, and Airburst will give you a lot higher peak. If you want to do Conflux shenanigans, which trust me, Conflux shenanigans are a thing you can do on this build, go for a prime potency transfuser. Again, take the splash damage, or splash radius, sorry, and take the gun damage. Splash radius will help your transfuser procs. Transfuser does have a certain radius it goes out to, but with splash radius it does improve that. It also will do better. If you want the reload speed for bolt action, you're more than welcome to have it. This will multiply with your skill tree reload speed, if I can fucking get onto it. So get the lead out will multiply with your enhancement reload speed, because it's a specific type of reload speed, whereas get the lead out is just generic. Enhancement is specifically gun reload speed, so they'll multiply together. And then with more reload speed, bolt action does more damage because you're spending less time reloading, more time firing your guns.
Hey, have you seen the order airships in the sky? Even if you haven't, I'm thinking we give them a nice interior remodel. Scouted the area, and the resupply outpost is our best shot at doing just that. You got this. Right, now you should be able to use the airship's tractor beam to get inside while it's refueling. After that, the fun begins. Probably won't have enough time to take down the whole ship, but destroy whatever those Vault Hunter eyes see. Order soldiers, order weapons, order, other stuff. The more damage you do, the bigger the reward. How many? Self-immolation sequence. Incineration commencing in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I know your weakness, Order villain. Death!
Ship right above you, ready to enter in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
incineration. Purging systems activating. Initiating purge in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Get ready. We've got an order airship right above you. Ready to enter in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All available hands. Find and execute the intruder.
Safe incoming! All I used was a pistol! I killed your timekeeper, and I will kill you too!
Purging systems activating.
Will no one challenge my gunmanship?
Preparing self-defense incineration.
Get ready. We've got an order airship right above you. Ready to enter in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All available hands, find and execute the intruder.
All that metal for nothing! Power forces!
Purging systems activating. Purging systems activating. Initiating purge in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
That's the last of the airships.